God, it doesn't get any better than this. I want to point out, Mimi, in 2004, when they were stealing the election, Bob Fitrakis and I put out this book about, it's about 108 different ways they stole the election in Ohio 2004. And we got the highest compliment you can ever get from Kurt Vonnegut. Kurt Vonnegut, I got to know Kurt Vonnegut in the last year of his life, and he read this book. And he announced, this explains how they stole the election in 2004 in Ohio. And he, around that time, soon thereafter, he announced that he was not going to speak on campuses anymore. But the kids at Ohio State convinced him to give one more speech. And Kurt Vonnegut came to Columbus with virtually no publicity, and 4,000 students showed up to see him. So he filled a hall with 2,000 people, and then they had a spillover hall where they ran a video. And he sits up on a stage, and he starts off, and the format was he didn't give a speech, he sat there and they asked him questions. So he's sitting on a couch and he starts off and he says, he was very gruff, he says, can I speak my mind? And they said, oh, well, that's what you're here for. And he said, and he held up this book. I swear I couldn't make this up. He held up this book and he said, what's the difference between Bush and Hitler? This was George W. Bush. What's the difference between George W. Bush and Adolf Hitler? This like stunned silence. And he says, Hitler was elected. So there you go. That's straight from Kurt Vonnegut. I want to acknowledge, where did Alan Minsky. I want to say, Alan Minsky, thank you so much, and you'll come up later, say a few words, okay? But Alan Minsky has been running the, come on up, Alan, has been running the PDA Zoom. I want to thoroughly embarrass you. And you'll say a few minutes. If you actually just say us a couple minutes real quick about PDA. We are now on the Progressive Democrats of America Zoom. And I want to tell you that I just got a phone call from CBS, and they're preempting the Oscars to run this. So this will be all over the world. I'm just want you to know. So Alan is the executive director of Progressive Democrats of America, one of the great activists in all of America, and because of him, we're now going live on Zoom. Alan, just say a couple words if you would, please.
I haven't seen Drive My Car, but it seems like a very, very interesting film. It's rooted in a Chekhov play, Uncle Vanya. No, I suppose I'm not supposed to talk about that. Okay. So Joel Segal. First of all, it's incredible to be around Joel Segal. And and right off the bat, it's just astonishing to be able to have PDA partner with GREEP, which is the best acronym since CREEP, to re-elect the president, the acronym that proved somehow the Nixon administration sort of had a sense of humor, I suppose. Yeah, right. Tom English, it's so great to be here with you, Tom. Oh, Tom. And in seeing Tom, I just need to acknowledge our co-founder, Lila Garrett, who passed. Lila was so wise. She had so much just spiritual wisdom as Lila Garrett, that she lived a long and one of the most fulfilling lives imaginable. For those who don't know, she's the inspiration for the Barbra Streisand character in the movie The Way We Were. And she had the COVID pandemic. I think she left her mortal coil a couple weeks before it hit, which actually, again, in all of her earthly wisdom and just cosmological wisdom, she is something we all should take note of, because we have to take better care of ourselves and our planet. We have to be aware of how things like our destruction of the climate is going to produce more pandemics. And Lila Garrett Presente for sure. And so, yeah, and also Peter Matthews, I see here. I've got some good news for Peter Matthews. He's running for office in the 42nd District. And no, I'm not going to announce a PDA endorsement. That goes through a process. That's a very interesting race. And there are about 4 people who are claiming the progressive lane, and at least 2 of them who I think are doing so in great sincerity, one of them being Peter. So I'm going to try to be organizing basically a debate in the 42nd District with PDA, maybe some other progressive organizations. And if anybody here wants to help out with that process, if anybody wants to step up and assist in us putting on a debate for the candidates, Democratic, we only endorse Democrats at PDA. It's in our name. I think people can understand that. We will endorse in general elections people who are independents if they promise to caucus with the Democratic Party. Hence, we do endorse Bernie Sanders in Vermont, for instance. Yeah, we would love to put on a debate among the Democratic candidates running in the 42nd District. That was Lowenthal's district. Of course, the district lines got redrawn. There are a number of people running there, Reverend Moses Somerville, Peter Matthews, and then two Garcias, who both have considerable establishment backing, the mayor of Long Beach and Assemblywoman Cristina Garcia. We'd love to bring the four of them together. I hope Peter would be amenable to the proposal. In the 42nd, right? Yes, to get a good debate going. Now, of course, we just had a town hall with Doyle Canning. I don't know, does everybody know who Doyle Canning is? See, they don't. This is a problem we face in this country here right now, folks, which is that we have two different kinds of elections. We have elections in which there's a presidential election taking place, in which the general public focuses upon the election, and the attention can spill over to other candidates. Right now, with the collapse of local journalism, we have a situation in a midterm election year where insurgent candidates running against rotten incumbents have a very, 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 very difficult time getting the word out about their candidacy. And you have open seats. You have candidates who have a very difficult time getting the word out. Well, Peter DeFazio has stepped down as the longtime congressman in Oregon's 4th, and we just had our town hall with Doyle Canning, who will singularly enter the Congress as probably the leading climate emergency and climate activist in the country. She's a brilliant candidate, and she has a political messaging background, and we just had her on our town hall. So to get the word out about her. And on Wednesday night, we're going to have a national fundraiser for Senator Nina Turner. Who here has heard of Senator Nina Turner? Sort of proving the case because, of course, she's famous because she was a surrogate in a presidential campaign. So, by the way, Dolores Huerta is in the front row right here.
She's next.
Yes, and she's coming up next, so everybody stick around for that. And I am honored to know Dolores both as a family friend and as one of the greatest political allies anyone can have in the world. And it's just going to be a tremendous honor to hear from Dolores Huerta. But let me say what I can about GREEP, okay? What these guys are doing is so exemplary. I mean, what comes together every Monday on a national town hall, if you care about having an honest democracy in this country, you got to know about GREEP. You got to know about the work that people like Andrea Miller and Harvey Wasserman and Joel Segal and boy, what they're bringing forward as a ballot proposal in Arizona through the work of John Brakey, I mean, this addresses all of the issues that people have. I mean, they've thought through what it means to have computerized voting. What does it take to have certainty about the vote that you are casting? These guys have thought through it. They're experts on the subject, and what they're proposing is the most exemplary just instance I have seen yet to date. Okay, now going forward in this year, we need to push to get out the vote this year. I mean, we as Progressive Democrats of America, here's what we are all about right now. We're about getting as many progressives onto the general election ballot in November. Between now and the end of the primary season, we are going to be championing great candidates like Nina Turner, Doyle Canning, Greg Casar, who just basically won his seat down in Texas, Jessica Cisneros against Henry Cuellar down in South Texas, Jasmine Crockett up in the Dallas area. We're going to be endorsing great progressive incumbents as we move the Democratic Party to be truly a party for the people and for the planet, folks. But we are also an organization that understands fully that the Republican Party right now is a threat to the very existence of a democratic society that we've grown up in. And come November, we have to make sure that we can hold on to a House majority. We can expand the Democratic majority, which we can do in this election cycle, past 52 to marginalize Democrats who I would really choke on saying they're our friends, Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. So we get to 52, we can move the president's agenda, a progressive agenda, through both houses, through reconciliation and through the House, and break the constraints of the filibuster to get democratic reform in our country. And just That's what we're about at PDA. And in November, we're going to have to educate the population about how to vote. There are restrictions around the country in state after state that Republicans have imposed. What Mimi talked about, we're going to revive our calendar site, and we're going to work with incredible allies like Dolores Huerta, like the great Christian Nunez, who is here in person with us tonight, the president of now the National Organization of Women, and Andrea Miller, who I think is going to join us remotely from the Center for Common Ground. And you, Harvey. Just one of the great organizers of his generation and all generations. Thank you, Harvey.
Alan, it's really an honor, and Alan is the reason we're on Zoom today. So we have many people. Like I say, we've overtaken the Academy Awards. Thank you, Alan. Okay, so the next up, and we could not really do better than Dolores Huerta. I can't even begin to introduce Dolores Huerta, and so I'm turning it over to someone who can. Do you want me to move the mic down? Are you good to get up here? Okay. This is Tatanka Bricca. Former offensive lineman for the Cleveland Browns, and and I couldn't even begin to introduce this guy. So I'm going to let you talk away. He is a magnificent activist, and he will introduce Doris. Then Joel will introduce Christian and Mena, and we're going to keep on rolling. So thank you.
Thank you, Harvey Wasserman, former quarterback for Michigan.
Me and Tom Brady.
You and Tom Brady, that's right. Well, this is quite an honor. You all know who Dolores Huerta is. So, what can I say? Dolores is now 72. Her 55th birthday, we did a birthday party for her, and we were brainstorming about themes. And the theme came up because when you see the movement that her foundation has created, it's all about young people. People of all ages, but she inspires the younger generations in the Central Valley, especially young Latino women, but everyone. So anyway, the phrase went out, pass the torch. Dolores' response, no, you don't. I'm not ready to pass the torch. We can share the torch. That tells you a lot about Dolores. We're going to hear from Danny Sheehan and Sara Nelson later in the program, whom I'm here working with Dolores, the Romero Foundation and the Dolores Huerta Foundation, working together on the climate crisis. And well, I think I'll leave it at that. So Dolores, beloved by the whole nation and the world, champion of women, champion of human rights, champion of labor, champion of the next generation. Will you please welcome the incredible Se Puede, she invented it, Dolores Huerta.
Thank you very much. This is quite an honor to be here with you on this. I'm going to say this is a historic moment. You know, I always like to remember Caesar, what he would say to students when he was asking them to join the movement. And he would say, when you're in college, you can read about history, you can learn about history, you can write about history, but when you join the movement, you can make history. You can make history. And that is what we are doing here today. And I'm calling you, and Minnie Kennedy will remember my son Ricky, who would say, a voice from the San Joaquin Valley of California. I live in Kevin McCarthy's district, okay? And this, as we know, is oil land. You know, Bakersfield, California produces, I think, close to 70% of all the petroleum in the United States. I cannot tell you how our air is so polluted that one of our committees that we have that works with us, they actually had to pass a petition to build a brand new gymnasium because the air is so bad that the kids could not go out and play. During recess, lunch, they couldn't go out and play. This is how bad it is. And when Mimi was talking about the great speech that Mimi made, let's give her a big applause. Mimi Kennedy, que viva. And she was talking about all of the wars And we know that there is one issue in all of these wars, and that in Afghanistan, the war in Afghanistan, what was it about? It was about oil. A lot of what is happening right now in the Ukraine with Russia is about oil. So we know that oil has become the enemy of the people. And especially when we come to talk about global warming and the illnesses that cause, the children in the San Joaquin Valley that have all of these illnesses that come from oil. So this is why this is so important, this venture that Danny and Sara are going to be talking about today, and it's why it is so important that all of us get on board to make sure that we can do something about the oil pollution and save the planet for our children and our grandchildren, right, and their grandchildren, because otherwise we know it's not going to happen. In Bakersfield, California, again, we had over 100 days where we had the climate was so hot and so bad. Bakersfield, California, I think in 2018 or 2019, was the city that had the hottest temperature in the United States of America. And why? Because it doesn't cool down at night. It still stays hot. And so when we think of Palm Springs, what was it, last year, where the temperature went up to 120 degrees in Palm Springs, California? I mean, we know that the signs are all around us and that we have to do something, and we have to do something fast. So this great initiative that Danny Sheehan and Sara Nelson have come up with, and we're very happy to be able to partner with them. I think this is one of the answers that we need. And the one good, well, I'm not gonna steal Danny's thunder, because I know that he is going to lay it all out for us. But the one thing that we have to do is we have to become the organizers that are going to help him make it happen. We have to do everything that we can to raise some money, because we know with the plan that he has, going to community colleges all over the state of California to organize the young people to come out there, because we know that this is their fight. They have made that very, very visible, very prominent. But we have to show them, okay, we have a vehicle in the state legislature so that we can get behind that vehicle, and this is the way that we can make it happen. Okay? So we know that we can make it happen. I do want to say a few words about Women's History Month. Women's History Month is important, and Mimi mentioned what was happening to our Supreme Court Justice nominee, Ms. Jackson. How many of us saw that on television? Wasn't that disgusting? I mean, I think that was like a verbal lynching, what they did to her. I know I was so angry that I want to go to Texas and get rid of some of those senators, okay? I think we need to do a Freedom Summer in Texas. And because she was treated that way, not only because she's a black woman, because she is a woman. And that, they put all of that verbal abuse on her. And this is something that we have to really continue to fight to make sure that we have women also elected to office. And I'm going to mention one of them, and I did tell Mr. Matthews about this, but Cristina Garcia, who is also running for that congressional seat, when she was in the California legislature, she passed a bill, an environmental bill, and the building trades were so angry with her that they went after her. They spent millions of dollars to defeat her. And guess what? She won with 70% of the vote. 70% of the vote, okay? And she's also been a big champion for women. And it's really, really important that we do elect progressives. Thank you for having your progressive party, Progressive Democratic Party, because we have so many people that are not progressives. They're Democrats, but when we need their vote, they're not there. And we get that disappointment over and over again. And one of those, and I'm going to mention names here, okay? We've been mentioning names, I'm going to mention names too. And I'm going to mention that I am supporting Karen Bass for the mayor of the city of Los Angeles. I've known Kevin deLeón since he was a young man. I remember the way that he treated Dianne Feinstein when she was running for the Senate. Again, a lot of verbal abuse aimed at our esteemed state senator. There was no cause to do that. I think that Kevin is politically immature, and we need a strong leader for the city of Los Angeles, again, to fight for the environmental issues that we need, right? to fight for those environmental issues as we need, and all of the other issues that plague the city of Los Angeles. So anyway, that's where I'm at, and I hope some of you can join me. But the main thing that we have to work on, and we're talking about today, we have to see what we can do. We have to commit our resources. We have to make a commitment that we're going to do as much as we can to support Danny Sheehan, Sara Nelson, the Romero Institute, and everybody out there that is working for climate change. Se puede o no se puede? And I always like to end my talks by saying one simple thing. I would like to ask all of you to stand up, please, if you can. Stand up. And then I'm going to ask you the question. We know what we have to do. We know that we have to work very hard. But I'm going to ask you the question. Okay, who's got the power? I want you to say, we've got the power. And then I'm going to say, what kind of power? I'm going to say, people power. Okay, let's do it one more time, and as loud as we can. Who's got the power? What kind of power? So, are we going to use our power to make sure that we pass this piece of legislation in the Sacramento legislature? Okay? Se puede o no se puede? All right. Thank you very much, and good luck to all of you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dolores. It's amazing to be able to hear Dolores Huerta. Thank you again, Dolores, for coming so much. I do want to mention, since she mentioned power, this is a book by my buddy Dennis Kucinich, who's been here before. It's called The Division of Light and Power. Dennis is a very cool guy. I wish he was going to be the next mayor of Cleveland, but he's not here today. But I did want to mention this. Now we have two incredible speakers. Joel Segal is going to introduce Kristen Nunez and Dana Demasi. We're incredibly honored to have them. And Julie Levine will be speaking later. Levy, Peter Matthews, John Brakey. We have a really amazing group of people that we'll be meeting with in a roundtable as we continue. We are Zooming again, so there's quite a lot more people. Unfortunately, they can't be here. How could it be better than here? And Jan Goodman is going to join us soon also. So I got Joel Segal here. Joel's my buddy. He was the chief guy with John Conyers. He is literally the guy responsible for the Affordable Care Act, which he wrote. And he got it through Congress. And so, Joel, if you'll come on up, give us your talk and introduce these wonderful women, we appreciate it. I do want to mention, by one quick thing. When Shirley Chisholm ran for president in 1972, she was the first, and I want to mention Ruth Strauss is here. Right? Anyway, when she ran for president, she was asked, where did she get more pushback, as a black person or as a woman? And she did not hesitate. Which do you think it was? As a woman, absolutely. So, you know, there's nothing that terrifies the right wing more than a powerful woman. Okay, Joel, you're going to introduce two of the most powerful women that ever lived, followed by one of the most powerful that ever lived. So you got a heavy load here, bro.
All right, man. Good afternoon. I'm from North Carolina, so we say, how y'all doing? You say, I'm all right. Where's Dolores? Where's Dolores? All right, Dolores, this will take 30 seconds. Now, when I first met Dolores, I was with Congressman Conyers, and we were working on the Affordable Care Act. We were pushing Medicare for all single payer. The Affordable Care Act was the result of single payer. So Dolores walked in to my office, and I said, his name was Sal Alvarez, may he rest in peace. So he said, this is Dolores Huerta. And I'm like, the Dolores Huerta who I grew up reading about? I said, I'm a little bit nervous. And she grabbed my shoulder and she says, look, Joel, I'm an organizer like you. This is an historical woman. Can we give her a round of applause? The reason why I love her so much, I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I moved to take care of a family member who got sick, because we don't have housing for sick people in America. And it was ICE, we were protesting ICE. And Dolores kept looking at me. She said, where do I know you from? I said, from Congressman Conyers' office. She said, you want to have lunch? I said, sure. So we went to a Mexican restaurant. There were about 80 people in the restaurant. And Dolores was there with everyone, and she was everybody's mother and everybody's grandmother. And the reason, I'm gonna get upset. I never get upset. The reason why I love this woman, she never puts herself above anybody because she's with the people. And we have to have more activists like Dolores and Harvey because she's with the people, not above the people. And if there's anything I'll say about Dolores and Tatanka and Danny, is you got to be fighting for the people. That's why we're here. Am I right, Dolores? Well, you're one of the reasons why I do this work. So I'm just so glad that Dolores, that you're here. And now Dolores flipped many members of the Hispanic caucus. I'm gonna just tell you a quick story and then I'm gonna introduce our guest. What happened was Rahm Emanuel, the chief of staff for Obama, was going to withdraw the Affordable Care Act because he thought we would lose the midterms and the House would go Republican. Dolores and I worked to flip members of Congress who were going to vote no. Conyers, I love Conyers, he's not here anymore, God bless him. But I got together with his donors and his key activists and I said, you got to meet with Mr. Conyers, he's going to vote no. Because he didn't want to give billions of dollars to the insurance companies. I understood that. And I heard him talking to Physicians for a National Health Program, the president. And he said, what would Martin King do and what would Mandela do? Because he worked with Mandela and he worked with Martin King, was Martin King's attorney. He was struggling with the Affordable Care Act. So I was like, sir, I grew up uninsured. I almost died because I was uninsured. And there's millions of people uninsured. Let's just get started. Let's pass this bill. We can get to single payer, but let's get started. And the reason why there was Medicaid expansion, which was a part of the bill that I helped draft, was because I knew that I didn't want to see people die because they were uninsured, okay? It was that simple. Did I get my butt kicked and crucified by a lot of people in the single payer? I did, but you know what? When I was uninsured and homeless and doctors wouldn't see me, I just needed a card to get into that doctor's office. I didn't care if it said Medicare, I didn't care what it said. But Dolores, I want to thank you. If Dolores had not flipped the members of the Hispanic caucus, we would have never passed that bill. No one knows this about her because she's so humble, but thank you for passing the Affordable Care Act. Yes, that was you. And when I am writing a history of the Affordable Care Act and Medicare for All, and there's a big chapter on Dolores, so I just want to let you know that, okay. So before I introduce our special guest, and there's, you know, every time I come to Los Angeles, it's like a combination of like Woodstock, Haight-Ashbury, and it's, I was at Dorothy Reich, the great Dorothy Reich, at one of her parties. Yeah, she deserves a round of applause. But every time I come here, I get so much love from people like, hey, thank you so much for the work that you do. But where I live in North Carolina, which is, you know, kind of Republican, kind of redneck, they're like, so you're the one that worked on the Affordable Care Act, huh? I'm like, dude, don't be mad at me, okay? I just want people to get insurance. But it's so good to be here. But we got to give a round of applause to the people who are responsible for this. Jerry Manpool, is it Manpool? Right, Manpearl. Sorry, God. And Jan Goodman, can you stand up, please, Jan? So, like, you know, Jan's been trying to save Pacific Radio. She holds all these kind of fundraisers all the time, but she's like one of the most incredible people, her and her husband, and because she lifts people up all the time who are progressives. But, you know, plus, is this? I'm a musician, so we say this is a nice crib. Is this a nice crib or what? This is a beautiful place. Right? All right, so there's a person who was supposed to be here that couldn't make it. And the reason why she couldn't make it was because she had some other obligations. And I'm going to talk about her in about a minute or two. But I want to thank. Where's Alan Minsky? Give Alan a round of applause. I'm the co-founder of Progressive Democrats of America with Tim Carpenter and Mimi Kennedy. Mimi. And I met Mimi, and I'm like, man, you are really cool, you know. And I said, I think I'll work in this PDA. And she was the first chair, I was the first vice chair. And when Tim Carpenter died, may rest in peace, we didn't know what was going to happen to PDA, but Alan Minsky and all the people in PDA, they kept it together. And we got to have progressives in Congress because we can work on progressive things. But if we don't have people who are progressive in the House and the Senate, we're not going to get much done, right? So Alan, you know, you're kind of low-key dude and all that, but I love you, man, and so does everybody here. So, and you also love basketball, too. So, but anyway, Andrea Miller was going to be here. She's executive director of the Center for Common Ground. And what Andrea is doing is really cool. She's starting democracy centers in inner city neighborhoods, predominantly African-American neighborhoods, in the South where there's low voter turnout. So she's really taking kind of a model of the Black Panthers, and it's now like 2022 Black Panthers. They're getting to know the people in these democracy centers, making sure people have food and health care and gaining their trust, then they're getting them out to vote. And if we don't, we got to start funding the democracy centers. I think that's the future. The reason why there's a lot of, yes, the future. The reason why there's a lot of low voter turnout is a lot of Democrats who run for Congress don't vote on issues that people who are low income and communities of color care about. Universal child care, jobs for all, health care for all, right? Transportation for all, Social Security that you can live on. Democrats got to run as big D Democrats, not as moderate Republicans. So these democracy centers are extremely important. She couldn't be here, but I wanted to at least, let you know that she's organizing democracy centers all across the country. I think it's a political revolution. All right. Now, where's Harvey? All right. My brother from another mother. What Harvey has done with this Grassroots Election Protection Coalition is very important. So every Monday at 5 o'clock, we have a call with activists across the country. And for years, I've been a little bit critical of the left, of which I'm a part of, and saying there's too many silos. And there is something called the nonprofit industrial complex. Can I get an amen? You know what that is? All right. The nonprofit industrial complex is not capable of starting a revolutionary progressive movement for the people because there's often a fiduciary incentive in their minds, which is not true, to look after their own self-interest. What this man has done is he's bringing together activists from all across the country, from California to North Carolina, in a solidarity call, and it's, election protection, it's climate change, it's, so many different issues, and we're starting to, come together. And we need to keep this organization viable. I think you know what I mean, economically viable. Please support the Grassroots Election Protection Coalition. There will be another Harvey Wasserman. His new book that he's written is probably one of the most incredible history books that I've ever read. And when I was in college, you weren't hip unless you had his history book, right? But when I met him, I was kind of nervous, So I was at his house staying with him. Mimi said, you can stay with, Harvey, because she had some other people staying with her. And I'm like, man, you're talking about the Harvey Wasserman? So I walked in, and I was a little nervous, It's kind of like a legendary dude, like Danny Sheehan, a legendary dude. And so he said, come out by the pool. I said, all right. So he takes his shirt off and just jumps into the pool. I'm like, this guy's cool. And we got this Jewish man thing going on where we joke and kibbutz. Does anybody know what kibbutz means? Raise your hand. All right. Kibbutz is when you're getting serious, but then you joke all the time. And we're serious, then we joke, then we're serious, then we joke. And he's also a great professor, but his history book, where's your history book?
It's around there somewhere.
Yeah, his New People's History is pretty incredible.
I think they're burning it now.
They're not burning it, man. That would be what Trump would do, is burn shit. I'm sorry, stuff. But anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest, but
thank you, Joel.
Harvey Wasserman, round of applause. One thing that Harvey has taught me and teaching all of us, we must defend democracy from the far right-wing extremists. As long as we have the Electoral College, a fascist can come in. Not like that ever happened before. Remember Donald Trump? Okay. So we got to get rid of the Electoral College. We have to get rid of gerrymandering. It's racist. It's Jim Crow. As long as you have gerrymandering, we're not going to have true democracy. We need publicly financed campaigns. Can I get an amen? Money should not control politics, all because you can't allow TV TV broadcast stations to hijack our democracy. This guy right here, Brother Peter, let me tell you something, man. I used to run congressional campaigns. Most of the money that's raised is for the TV commercials. They ought to be free. They ought to be free. Our politics are being hijacked for profit by TV broadcast companies. That's wrong. All right, I'm going to get off my soapbox now. Corporate, right on. Corporate.